Hello everybody, hope you've all been well and been enjoying my videos. Today I'm going to talk to you lot about my love for computers. Now this started a very long time ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, maybe in 1994, 95 perhaps. We got a computer given to us by some friends of my grandmother. I think it was Doug and Shirley. Yeah, Doug and Shirley. It was an old Amstrad green screen thing. Wasn't running. We didn't have Windows on it. It was an 8-bit computer. Dot matrix printer or a daisy wheel printer was one of those two, and it ran an operating system called CP/M. Now, this wasn't exactly feature packed, especially by modern standards. You had a green screen monitor, single floppy disk drive, double-sided, as in you could flip the disk over and put it on it. One side of the disk was for loading up the included word processor, which I recall we used it extensively. I think that was LocoScript. I think, from my research. I don't remember what it was. Don't know what it was called from looking at it at the time. This is just research that I've done afterwards. I'm not sure what the model was, but I think that would be I think it would be a CPC 9512. I think. And you've disk label up was the word processor. Turn it over, and it would load what I imagine would be CP/M, so you could run your own programs. And my mum got some games for it. That was mostly educational stuff, maths games, English games, well, word games, whatever. But one in particular that I remember. Called Aerials, where you would put aerials onto roofs of houses. Now, there must have been some sort of strategy to it, like you had to put the right aerial on the right house, or it could literally have just been put all of the aerials on top of the houses before the time ran out. But that was the first time I'd ever played a video game. I played that a lot, to be honest. Then my mother got a Super Nintendo, and played that instead because it was better. But after a while, my parents decided they wanted to get a new computer, so they went down to PC World, I would imagine it was, as pretty much everybody did at the time, and had a shop around. They decided on a Packard Bell running Windows 95. It had a 166 MHz Pentium MMX, 16 megabytes of RAM, and from what my research leads me to believe, an S3 Verge 3D graphics card. Now that thing, I loved that thing. Playing the built-in games. The Packard Bell shipped a piece of software called Navigator with their PCs, which could be used as a desktop replacement if you really wanted to, but that's not what we used it as. we were set to load on boot, but we just load straight into Windows, and eventually my dad found a way of turning that off so we wouldn't have to boot into Navigator first. But they had these. Most part we didn't do anything with most of it, but there were these two rooms called MySpace and KidSpace, and they had these little built-in games, these fun activities you could do. You could change the design of the room and everything, and MySpace had this secret passageway into all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. I just got so engrossed in that. One of the things I remember doing is loading up my dad's Tubular Bells CD, Tubular Bells 2, and just playing around in MySpace for hours, playing the little games that came with the computer, playing Navigator's built-in games, pressing with all these context-sensitive hidden buttons everywhere. You press a button and like a clown face would appear on the other side of the room. Press another one and this robot would come in, and you click the robot and it would do a little dance and float away and all sorts of stuff. And it came with the Microsoft Entertainment Pack, which was a pack of various games, Fuji Golf, Ski Free. I played a lot of Ski Free, Rodent's Revenge, then there was the Packard Bell game pack, which came with some board games. They had chess and Goto Weekend checkers, which I played a fair amount, and I just loved all these little what amounted to shareware games. You don't get a lot of shareware anymore, which is a shame because they had some really nice stuff. And I play around with the customizations on it, change the wallpapers, change the way the windows looked and everything. It annoyed my parents a lot, but I was a child, inquisitive, curious, wanting to fiddle with things, as I always did, and that kind of started my passion for computers. That Packard Bell, and all the games had a bit. Goosebumps games. This Goosebumps Escape from Horrorland is where my love of FMV based games, live action, with real people instead of computer generated characters and stuff. I played that to death. Literally, I scratched the disc and it wouldn't advance, and I couldn't. And eventually, we got a replacement copy off of eBay. Attack of the Mutant as well, which wasn't as good, but it was still fun to play. Jurassic Park: Lost World, Chaos Islands, which is a sort of Command and Conquer style strategy game set on Isla Sorna, where you can hatch dinosaurs and control them like little foot soldiers and stuff, which is brilliant. I still play that game occasionally. My dad also got Blade Runner, which is a point-and-click adventure game from Westwood, the same company that made Command and Conquer. And that is still one of my favourite adventure games. Again, it's one that I still play today. Brilliant game. Great story, great voice acting, great characters, multiple branching endings. I'm pretty sure I haven't got all of them, even after almost 20 years. God, that makes me feel old. And then there was also Titanic Adventure Out of Time, because I used to have a lot of obsessions when I was growing up, and Titanic was one of them. After I'd seen a few documentaries about it, and my parents, went out and looked for a Titanic game, and Adventure Out of Time was. It's like an espionage game. You play a Secret Service agent from Britain, obviously, and it's your job to locate a copy of a book, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Europe is on the brink of war, it being in 1912. And your actions on board the Titanic have the potential to affect the entire century, and that can be in both positive and negative ways. You can cause World War II against the Russians. So if you stop the Germans, you still might have the Russians coming over, and then that's really bad. I mean, at the start of the game, it's 1941, during the middle of the London Blitz, and there's an air raid, and your flat gets bombed, and your character dies. You get sent back in time to the Titanic because it was the only mission that your character had failed, and he goes about putting it right, or at least attempting to. I mean, of course, there's a fair amount of stumbling blocks along the way, but the ending involving the Russians is, effectively Britain loses the war to the Russians, and the Russian Soviet soldiers send out death squads to basically kill pretty much everybody around Britain. And then there's also another alternate one where it's the Germans doing the same thing, but the optimum ending is where you avert World War One. A few other things, you make sure that World War II doesn't come about, and you get a century of unparalleled peace, which is quite the opposite of what actually happened. Pretty compelling characters in that as well. If you like old style adventure games, I definitely would recommend trying out Titanic: Adventure Out of Time. It's a really, really enjoyable game, and that Packard Belt was also the first machine we got the internet on, dial-up service. Exploring the internet in the late 90s, wow. I thought it was amazing. Websites you could watch tiny little videos on, and back in the day everybody was all about having special text on all their animated text on their little GeoCities websites and Angel File websites. GIFs aplenty. Yes, the internet in the 1990s was an experience. And that was also around the time that I got my first email address. It was I think it was in 1998 or 99. I got a Yahoo address, which I've still got now. No, I don't use it. But yeah, I've been using email now for over 15 years. Certainly, I used it a lot more then than I do now. I mean, that was before I started using instant messenger stuff. But, talking to people all over the world. I mean, as a child, that was a very thrilling thing, being able to talk to somebody who was in America, without paying a fortune using the telephone and whatnot. And I joined a few forums and posted on stuff there. It's been bloody years and years ago. The sites probably don't exist anymore. But in 2001, I think it was 2001 or 2002, parents bought another computer. It's an E-Machines with a Pentium 4 and the best graphics card we've ever had, which was a GeForce 2 MX 400, which it was a budget card, but it could play any game we threw at it with minimal problems. I mean, sure, the frame rates weren't great, but after a while you kind of get used to that when it's the only thing that you can do. And we were using it all the way up until 2007, and we only started having problems, where we literally couldn't run games within the last year that we used it, I think. But yeah, that machine had Windows XP on it, and played around with, again, because you could have your own user accounts. You could change the settings for them, and it wouldn't affect the other people's accounts. And I'd always being a fan of Red, I'd put on Windows Classic theme and change the title bar to red and all of that. But yeah, that enhanced my passion for computers. And then in 2005 I got my own laptop, and then I could really get to playing with stuff, installing all these weird and wonderful software, lots of different games. We also got we got broadband internet. Probably 2005 we got broadband. But I couldn't use it on the laptop because it was using one of those USB modems that was plugged into the main computer. I didn't know how to do internet sharing in those days. But eventually we got broadband from Sky, and that came with a Wi-Fi router, and we got a USB Wi-Fi dongle that I was able to plug into my laptop and surf the web with impunity on that. And over the years I had various ideas of what I wanted to do. I mean, when you're a child you have crazy stuff, and I wanted to be a milkman at one point. I wanted to be a farmer, but after a while I sort of settled on being a vet's assistant because I liked animals, and the idea of working with them appealed to me. But after doing work experience in a veterinary surgery, I've sort of decided against the idea. Hiccups. Yeah, I decided against the idea. So I needed to come up with something else. And then I did IT, learning IT at school. Really, it wasn't anything, properly about IT. It wasn't anything technical. It was more about learning how to use Office. That was it. Learning how to use formulas and stuff in Excel, learning how to build an Access database, and do Word documents and PowerPoint presentations and stuff. The sort of skills that people would need if they were going into an office. So, yeah, it was pretty pointless me doing that. But yeah, after I had come to getting towards the end of my first year of sixth form, where there had been a worry that I wouldn't be able to carry on because I was struggling with my classes. I Well, no, it wasn't, because I repeated the first year. No, this was the second year. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to get enough, get good enough grades to be allowed to continue on with the courses for A2. And my mum was looking around at, alternatives, and she found a college in the next town over from me that did a free apprenticeship course where you'd learn how to fix computers, and you get qualifications and stuff, and they said that they would help you find a job. So I thought, I could do that. I went for the interview for that, and did the little interview test thing that they had, and they said, we'd be happy to have you, but in the end I got enough grades to be able to carry on with my A-levels, and it was probably not the best idea for me to do that, but I wanted to. They didn't get me anywhere. They were kind of pointless for me to have because at A2 I was only studying history, ancient history and law, so it's not like I would be making a career out of any of those. So they'd sort of been the filler courses because I was intending to do IT, but I wasn't allowed to carry on with IT because my grade wasn't good enough. But yeah, when I finished my A-levels, I decided, right, I'll go and do that course at that college. I just managed to get in because it was only 16 to 18 year olds that were allowed to do it, and the enrolment date was a few days before my 19th birthday, so luckily I was able to get in. But yeah, I did that. It was alright. I made a friend there that I used to work with a lot, though we don't talk anymore because it's been like 6 years. And they taught you all the ins and outs of Windows XP. They taught you how to install the operating system, which I knew already because I'd done it myself. They showed you how to upgrade from Windows 2000 to Windows XP. They took old computers in there. They let you take apart and put back together again, so that you could get confident with knowing where things went, how they went in and out, and their individual functions and stuff. Which was all very good. I enjoyed doing the course. It was the first thing that I'd ever excelled at in compulsory education. I would always scrape the bare minimum for my grades and so on. But this, it was like I just had to turn up and I would pass the exams, with flying colours. I was one of the best students they'd ever had. One of the instructors said to me, if you applied yourself and really worked for it, you could be the next Bill Gates. Unfortunately, that hasn't come to pass so far, anyway. Learned how to administer domains, set up networks, install and configure servers and stuff. And that was all pretty good, but unfortunately, our academy got the drew the short straw, it seemed, because other places, we'd been promised that employers from companies would come in and do workshops, talk about their companies, do presentations and stuff. And in the past, what employers have done, they scouted out people from this place that I've been to, and a lot of people would walk away with job offers when they finished the course. We got none of that. They told us about the academy up in Woking. They said, "Oh, they've done this, they've done that," and we're sitting here like, "What about us?" And then just towards the end of the course, the company got taken over by a bigger company, and everybody got shuffled around, and the woman who was supposed to be what was known as the placement officer, the woman who would go out and use her business contacts to find work for people. She got moved to another position in the company, and the people that they got to replace her were complete shit. They didn't know anybody. They really just scrabbling around for anything. I mean, they were cold calling businesses in the area saying, "Have you got any IT jobs?" Luckily, they managed to find me one after so long. It was like 6 months of nothing. I'd been told by the original placement officer, that you've got, this job for you that I'm going to put you forward for. She said that there was a job working for MI5 that she was going to put forward for. Never heard anything about that after then. There was a job at Cable and Wireless that I never heard anything about after that. But then she stopped because she got reassigned, and eventually I found a job, but that job only lasted 6 months. But then again, this is no, it wasn't even 6 months. Sorry, it was 4 months. I got made redundant I started in August, got made redundant in December. But yeah, IT is my biggest passion. For the people who watch some of my older videos where I do reviews of old 8-bit computers, from the 1980s, the Sinclair Spectrum, the Dragon 32, etc. I've got a lot of stuff like that, or had. I don't have it all anymore, unfortunately. And I just love playing with these things. The days of the 8-bit computers is pretty much only for games. But even researching about them, taking them apart, investigating what's inside them, it's very, very appealing. Someone give me an old computer and I thought, let's take it apart, we're going to see what's inside it. And it's like a compulsion to, play around with these old computers. And, thankfully the obsession that my Asperger's latched onto is something that I could turn into a viable career, provided my Asperger's doesn't get in the way of that, which it has done up till now. But computers are really, they sort of, they fascinate me in a way. I love playing with them. I've got a Dell Optiplex GX1, which a lot of people would have used in schools and businesses around the world because it was ubiquitous in offices and schools. If you don't know it by name, you would know it by looking at it. And I probably had about 5 or 6 different operating systems installed on there. And for the most part, I don't really even use them. It's more of a case of, installing them, getting them, with the drivers installed, everything configured, installing a few programs in games to make sure that everything works properly. But it's sort of the experience of doing all of the, the setup and configuration and investigating all the aspects of the software and everything. I don't know whether it's my curiosity driving that, but it's it's just something that I love doing. Taking stuff apart and upgrading them. Sometimes to ridiculous extents. I mean, the GX1, it came with 256 megabytes of RAM. I upgraded it to the maximum, which was 768. I also happened to have a little SODIMM RAM stick, which happened to fit in the upgrade slot for the integrated video card. So I doubled the RAM on that, that sort of thing probably would be really, really difficult to find on eBay. Thankfully, when I gutted an old PC years ago, I kept it because I thought it might be useful, and I'm really glad I did. I also upgraded the CPU in it. When I ordered it, it came with just the bare thing. I mean, this is a slotted CPU, not a socket. It's like the CPU is attached to a card, sort of. It's a CPU on a card. It was slotted into the thing. So I had to find a way of removing the heatsink and fan from the old one. I mean, a lot of them were done with screws, which would have been pretty easy, but I was one of the unlucky ones that had it done with plastic clips, which are notoriously fragile. I had to, research a way of getting them off without breaking them. And, though most people might not find that sort of thing enjoyable, I loved doing that. It was exciting, it was enjoyable. I managed to get the heatsink on, clean off the old thermal compound, put some new stuff on it, and then slap it onto the new CPU, and then put it in the computer, and everything worked fine. Booted up the Ultimate Boot CD and let it run one of the CPU stress utilities for a while, just to make sure that everything was stable and it wasn't going to overheat. But yeah, everything was fine. Took it up from 450 megahertz to 600 megahertz, and that's the fastest one you can get in it without fiddling around. For some reason, Dell decided in one of the later BIOSes to lock out CPUs that they did not deem supported. I mean, up until version number A07, you could. The only ones that were listed officially as compatible with the original Katmai core Pentium 3s. But before they locked out the other ones in the BIOS, you could install 700 megahertz ones, 800 megahertz ones, and there were also something called slockets, which were those CPU card things that had a socket on them, so you could put a newer socketed CPU onto the card and put it in the slot on the motherboard. It was an adapter essentially, and those would work, which would have been great for enthusiasts back in the day. That's something that I might investigate doing at some point in the future, but right now I'm just content to have the a normal one on there. But yeah, that's a project for another day. I love doing these little projects. Like, I buy something old, and I look at the specification of it, and I think, right, what can I upgrade on this? So I do research for what CPUs are compatible. And I hunt one down and put that in there. Upgrade the RAM, the graphics card if I can. I put this at multi-boot operating systems and stuff. All of this is just for fun. It's not like I'm having a real use for it. It's just something to play with. And I love it. It's one of the few things in my life, apart from video games, that I genuinely enjoy. But unfortunately, it's only one of those temporary things. After a while, the excitement wears off, and I'm just looking for something else to do. But a while ago I happened to come across an old Macintosh PowerBook one of the ones with a Motorola 68K CPU. You know, this thing is ancient. It's from like 1994, and the CPU is like 30 or 40 megahertz. It happened to be the model with the colour screen, which was cool. I bought that, and I had lots of fun putting various bits of software and whatnot on it. I was asking for some help on the Apple forums, trying to get something installed on it, and someone asked me, how much RAM has it got, and I said it's got, just the basic 4 megabytes, I think it was, 4 or 8, I can't remember what. She said, I've got a RAM upgrade for it, do you want it? Sure. The person just sent it to me in the post, no charge, which was great. I stripped the whole thing down, put the RAM card in, booted it up, 12 megabytes, yay. But unfortunately, I tried to turn that on 2 weeks ago, and the hard drive seems to be dead. It's not booting. Normally I would just buy another hard drive for it, but these things only use SCSI hard drives, and after I'm not sure when they switched from SCSI to IDE drives, but replacement hard drives for those things are almost impossible to find now. And the ones that you do find are, so old that they might not work for very long. So effectively that machine, even though the rest of it works fine, is unfortunately now useless to me, which is a real shame, because it was a great bit of kit. Really is. I feel immensely disappointed when something stops working. I mean, my favourite laptop that I've got is a Dell Inspiron 8100, which is a Pentium 3. I got it because it has the first NVIDIA laptop GPU in it. And I've had that since 2011, I think it was 2011. I specifically wanted that one. I went and I looked for one, and I found one. And of course, since I've upgraded it, I've put a new CPU, the highest rated CPU you can put in it. Upgraded the RAM, upgraded the hard drive, etc. But unfortunately, the keyboard was dying a little while ago. I had already bought a replacement one, but the quality on it wasn't very good compared to the original Dell one, so I went back to using the Dell one. And sometimes I boot it up, and either some or all of the keys wouldn't work, or the mouse trackpad wouldn't work. So I'd have to unscrew the keyboard, take the keyboard out, pull the connector out, put it back in again, boot it up, and hopefully it would work. I think the wires in the ribbon cable have been damaged, which is why it's having such an intermittent problem, because it's like you jostle it about a bit, and it makes the connection again. When you use it, and it's alright for a while, but you leave it sitting and it sort of goes back to its original position and breaks the connection again. Thankfully I already had a keyboard for it, so I just put the new one in there, but it's always really disappointing for me when something does work, and especially that, because that is my favourite out of all my laptops. I'm sort of emotionally attached to it. It's also really the only place that I can play some of my games, because they don't support higher resolutions, and it looks terrible on my monitors that I've got on my main desktop. So yeah, I would be really gutted if that machine died. It would be hard to find, one in such good a condition. I've been building my own desktop since 2009. Started with building a retro, the Windows 98 based system. I brought home some parts from when our office had a clear out, and it happened to have a motherboard with a Pentium 3 and RAM and everything for it. So I grabbed a case from where I worked and put the motherboard in the case, put a graphics card in it and a hard drive, and installed Windows 98 on it, which is sort of the first experience I had of using these older operating systems, purely for entertainment purposes. Installing various games on it, eventually upgrading them. I've got video of that of that computer, putting extra RAM and a new graphics card in it. I think it was the first video I did for my Tech Draw series years and years ago. And then I built a sort of a modern Windows gaming machine. To be honest, it was pretty terrible, but at the time I didn't really know any better. I just bought what seemed good. Because now I'm a bit more knowledgeable, and I have, the kick-ass machine, with water cooling and what was at the time the most powerful graphics card you could buy. Since then I've replaced the motherboard and the CPU and the RAM. I've jumped up quite a bit from what I built in 2010. And at some point I'll upgrade the graphics card when I need to, or when I feel I need to. It's not really a problem. Right now I can play pretty much everything on high settings without any noticeable lag or anything. But yeah, just playing with computers is something that's been appealing to me for a very long time, and it doesn't matter what kind of computer it is. Someone could give me a an MS-DOS machine from 1985, and I would quite happily put that on my desk, and playing with that, install MS-DOS on it, an old version of Windows, buy parts for it and stuff, put games and whatnot on it to play around with, and that would be great. I'm an equal opportunities computer lover. I'll play with anything anybody gives me, and that's just something that it's a hobby. Playing with computers, installing the operating systems, and thankfully, like I said, thankfully it's something that one can make a career out of. But unfortunately, my Asperger's kind of gives me a bit of a handicap with that, unfortunately. I'm not sure how long this is, so I think I should probably end it now. The only other thing that I can say really is on Friday I fell down the stairs and I think I broke my toe. Hurt like hell. It's turned a horrible purple colour, and I've been hobbling around all over the place. At the weekend, on Sunday, went to grandparents, and my granddad saw me hobbling and asked me what had happened, and I said, fell down the stairs, I think I broke my toe, and he gives me this. This is old cane. I'm not sure how old it is, but it's not his, because he's got a newer one. It looks pretty old, so I've been hobbling around on that for the last few days. And my grandmother, well, it was both of them really, but they gave all of us £200 each. Apparently their solicitor advised them that with the savings they've got now that they're coming to the end of their life, they should spread it around a bit, buy, treat themselves to stuff, buy gifts for people, and give out, cash to people every once in a while. I think the logic there is the less that there is left in inheritance, the less the government will get in inheritance tax and death duty, or death dues, whatever it's called. So yeah, we've spent some of that already, and still got a fair amount left, so I imagine I'll be having a look at stuff for a while. I've bought some stuff for the Raspberry Pi I've got. I bought that in 2011. I ordered it in 2011. I don't think it was shipped until 2012. I haven't really done anything with it. It was fun to play with for a while. I've ordered a case for it, a mini keyboard and trackpad wireless thing, a LAN, a Wi-Fi dongle, an SD card with a pre-installed operating system, a case for it, etc. And I'll see about doing some stuff with that. Maybe my parents can use that to stream football matches, so they don't have to keep borrowing my MacBook all the time. Anyway, hope you all have a very good week and that you've enjoyed listening to me rambling about my love for computers. Be seeing you.